What's up, everybody? Um, this I I I wasn't really planning on making one of these recordings tonight, and I went ahead and decided to because there's obviously been a lot of stuff that's been going on lately. Um, I'm not really even sure where to start. And by the way, I'm hoping that if anybody does watch this or listen to this and they notice anything about my microphone stuff, I hope they'll let me know what I need to change. In fact, just a second here, okay? Bear with me. What I'm trying to do here is um, kind of adjust my mic because I use OS or OBS to do these screen recordings, and sometimes it can kind of be a little bit of an art form to kind of tune everything in. So anyway, um, I wanted to talk a little bit about this whole Charlie Kirk thing. I don't. I mean, sometimes if you've been following me at all with any of my little uploads on my channel and stuff, you'll know that sometimes I talk about politics. There's a part of me that tries to stay away from it because I know that everyone out there that winds up looking up YouTubes about games and stuff, it's not as if they're wanting to get lectures about politics or world events or any other kind of shit. Because I'm sure one reason they watch YouTube videos of games is because A, they probably play the game, and B, they want to look at that stuff or listen to that stuff to escape the world. And to that degree, man, I'm definitely with you because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in my life that I try to escape from. But see, it's kind of a catch-22 because maybe everyone's a little different in this respect, but I know that the older I've gotten in my life, the more I begin to try to find ways to discuss things that are on my mind. And because of how prolific political situations are today, and me being older and seeing a wider range of things that go on in the world concerning how everything kind of interacts with one another, it's led to me to try to find ways uh, to kind of try to find ways to vent about stuff because a lot of the stuff that goes on in the world, to be honest with you, it does worry me a little bit. And my worry, I mean, the whole Charlie Kirk thing. Just to get this out of the way, I actually I don't want to say that I saw it happen as it happened because I don't think, I mean, Charlie Kirk, when he would do his campus university events and stuff, it's my understanding that he didn't normally live stream the events. I mean, I think there might have been a few that he did live stream, but I think overall, I think most of the time it was like a video on demand type of upload, kind of like what I do with my videos. But I did see it like moments after it had happened because, as we all know, stuff like this, there's always someone in the crowd somewhere that's recording shit. And as soon as they get done recording it, they upload it to fucking TikTok or X or whatever else that exists out there in the ether. And one thing leads to another, and then suddenly everything's going viral. Well, for me, this wasn't really much of an exception. Um, I think yesterday when I saw this all go down, when was it? I'm trying to remember the exact time. I don't want to give it an exact time because I just can't remember what the time was that I came across the realization that this was all going down. But I think it might have been like maybe around 2 o'clock, maybe three, something like that, somewhere around that time frame. And I'm somebody that, so to give you a little bit of context, real quick, I'm basically a computer programmer. Uh, well, people in the trade like to call it developer, computer programmer, whatever the hell you want to call it, man. I specialize in web stuff, and I work for a university doing that sort of thing. And so whenever I'm not really busy at work, like actually working, I'm usually just kind of surfing YouTube or whatever, or things that developers do in shops like that, where they're responding to support requests, or the stupid ass proverbial ticket where somebody creates a situation and then you have to go out there, grab the ticket, respond to it, research the situation, and fix it. Excuse me, I've got a little bit of a gummy throat right now. I'm gonna cough real quick. Hopefully that didn't come across. It looked like on my mic readout that it might have, so if it did, I apologize. Anyway, yesterday, whenever all this stuff was going down, it was another one of those kinds of days where I've got some shows and stuff on YouTube playing in the background. Because for me, it's a good way to kind of deal with the loneliness of an office, because where we work, I work along a kind of like a long hallway. And ever since COVID went down, everyone's learned to kind of shut their office doors or work from home, for those of us that are actually privileged enough to be able to work from home. The moral of that, though, is that it's kind of like a lonely little office space now. It's nothing like what it was before COVID, when everyone would have their doors open, everyone would be on premise, and we would sometimes shoot the shit with each other and stuff like that. So anyway, yesterday was one of those days when it was kind of slow, wasn't a lot going on, and I have four monitors on my desk, two uh, to different computers, and usually what I'll do is I'll load up some YouTube streams or shows or something, and I'll just kind of play those and watch them as I'm waiting for somebody to need me to get involved in a thing, or just whatever. I'll just usually just try to do that because it helps me pass the time and deal with kind of like the loneliness and stuff. Well, yesterday, whenever I was doing that sort of thing, I was kind of watching one of the house rep streams that you usually see on things like, I think it's like CNET, or some of those kinds of dorky political types of streams that are like always on 24/7. And through time, I've begun to kind of enjoy doing that, simply because every once in a while you can you can tune into some uh, house session where one of the firebrands, you know, causes a bunch of shit, and it it turns into some sort of shouting match or some crap like that. So, believe it or not, some of those streams really can be fun to watch. Kind of laughing because I always think about some of the stuff that I remember seeing in some of the streams. But anyway, during one of those streams, you know, the house was in order, and they were talking about just stuff that they talk about. And the particular channel that I use, or that I was using yesterday, I think it's called FedNet, FEDNET, FedNet. The channel on YouTube for FedNet allows a chat on there, okay? And the chat was going on, and people were just kind of blowing off about stuff here and there, giving the stereotypical type of political critique of the things that they were listening to and watching and stuff like that. And while that was on one of my other monitors, I decided to get out there on, I think it's uh, is it UK Mail, or Mail Daily Mail, or something like that. And I saw something on there about how Charlie Kirk had been shot. And at first, I thought, that has to be. I've got to be reading this wrong, because there's been times in the past when I would be doing things a million miles per hour, and I would glance at some word or wordage, and I would think that I saw something, only to kind of slow down, focus on it, and realize that I misread it. So I was thinking it was another one of those situations, and I slowed myself down, focused on the print, and I was like, "Is this real? This can't be real." And I clicked on the headline, and it was 100% real. It explained what the event was out there in Utah at some, it was just another one of his types of events that you see a billion times over from his uploads and everything on YouTube or wherever it is that you get your video content from. And I was thinking to myself, well, okay, surely to God it's not something traumatic. So I'm reading further into the piece, and it's talking about how he was shot, blah, 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 blah. But there wasn't, because of how everything was just transpiring, because I literally clicked on the headline like literally right as it had been posted, I think, because the Daily Mail piece that I was looking at, the page, it didn't have any comments yet down there in the comments section. And that's usually a telltale sign that you're clicking on something before everyone's had a chance to really, digest it. Well, at that time, the details were kind of few and far in between, and so I started looking around on the internet. I did your stereotypical types of Google searches, Charlie Kirk shot, blah blah blah, and that's when I knew it was made seriously serious stuff, because the stuff that I was seeing on there was like pieces from CNN, pieces from MSNBC, CNN, or CNBC, all of the big players, and X, of course. And I was thinking to myself, oh shit, something bad has happened. And came across some stuff talking about, uh, talking more about the specific stuff, and how bad everyone's thinking it was. And I got out there back on that FedNet chat, and I was like, hey, FYI, everyone's Charlie Kirk has been shot, blah 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 blah. And then everyone starts chiming in about it, and we're all just kind of sitting there having back and forth about the details and whatnot. And somebody in the chat said, well, they think he's been shot in the head. And I came across an article that said, no, it's sounding like it's something with his neck. So I was like, well, okay, fuck, I can't figure this out, man. So I get out there on, like, what was it? I think it was the first thing I did, because I figured in my mind there had to be somebody out there that had some sort of upload or footage or something. And don't get me wrong, man, it's not, none of this was anything to do with like me having some sort of morbid curiosity. I've been down that shit road, and I know where that fucking crap leads, and I did not want anything to do with that type of stuff. Uh, but I did want to know what in the hell was going on, because I'm a fan of Charlie Kirk. I don't agree with everything that he's always ever said. Like, for example, I think he's got some really extreme, or he had some extreme views about the college education that I didn't always agree with. He was kind of a hardliner with things like abortion rights, despite the fact that a lot of his points were actually pretty damn sound. Uh, but there were things along those kinds of lines where I felt like he was pretty extreme with his perspectives, but not rarely because I felt like he was completely wrong. I think the one thing that I felt like he might have been completely wrong about was his characterization of the university education, and I can go on and on about why I think that, but it doesn't really matter, man. I understand where a lot of his views came from, and so I kind of respected his views, despite the fact that I didn't always agree with it. But anyway, I got out there on social media and X and even TikTok and shit, just looking for stuff, because I was just curious and honestly concerned, because I didn't want to see or think that something bad actually happened. Like, in my mind, in the back of my mind, I was kind of thinking to myself, man, he's probably just been grazed, maybe, or maybe somebody shot at him and missed, or something along those lines. I was kind of thinking and hoping like that, because the results of my Google search was painting a very, very different picture, and it really did kind of get me a little startled. And I kind of wish I didn't get out there on social media, man, because I came across one of the videos from a distance that showed him getting hit, and at that point I realized, man, this shit's serious. And I started wondering, are there any other videos that maybe might show a better image, that might, I don't know, man, fucking give me some hope. And unfortunately, I came across a different video that showed it up close. I mean, it showed him getting nailed in the neck, fucking blood splurting everywhere. And as soon as I saw that shit, man, I started shaking. My hands began to kind of shake. And I was like, I literally said out loud, oh my fucking God. And I just paused the video after I saw it in completion, blood splurting out. He basically falls back, and I think, if I remember right, I think the video showed him falling out of his seat. At that point, everyone's like screaming, the camera footage is jostling all around and stuff. Everything's out of focus. It's just fucking pure chaos. And as soon as I saw that, man, I had to like get away from the computer, because I don't normally like get wound up over shit like that. I mean, I've seen some pretty bad shit during my 20 and up years of being an IT professional. You know, I've seen really horrible stuff, and some of the worst stuff that I've ever seen was always something that was related to the fucking cartels, some of their barbarous shit. But this thing that I saw with Charlie Kirk, though, man, it was one of those kinds of feelings that you get whenever it's the best I can do to describe what I was feeling is the feeling that you have or that you had whenever you first started seeing some of the footage making the rounds of the shit that was going on during 9/11, whenever everyone was either falling out or jumping out of their windows all the way up there, and seeing the horrible shit that was going on during that moment. And I remember when 9/11 happened, it took, I think, if I remember right, because you got to remember, man, I'm 40 something, and I think back then I was like junior or senior year or something like that, maybe sophomore in high school. So it's hard for me to remember exactly what was going on in my life back then, because my biggest concern back then, of course, were either hooking up with chicks or practicing basketball. But I think if I remember right, during that time, it took about, I'd say about a month before you begin to kind of see things on the internet of footage that people took during all of that mess that was going on, that fucking nightmare. And I remember whenever I first started seeing that stuff all the way back then, I remember it was the same feeling. You know, you would feel yourself kind of shake and uh, fucking want to cry and stuff like that. And with me in particular, whenever I see stuff like that, I feel rage. You know, it's like you feel like there's an evil that's getting away with something, and if you were only there to stop it, you may have been able to do something about it and put justice back in place where it rightfully needs to be. And with seeing what I saw yesterday with Charlie getting shot like that, and especially after realizing who it is now that's being left behind, his wife, his two kids, his son and daughter, you know, and knowing the fact that they were there to see that happen. I mean, I don't know how you really reconcile something like that in your mind with anything short of rage or tears and fucking whatever. You know, and that's one of the reasons that it's kind of worrisome about where we go from this, because I'm somebody, or at least I consider myself to be pretty controlled whenever it comes to his emotions and whenever it comes to like his politics and stuff, because as a MAGA guy myself, you know, I'd say up front that the only president I've ever voted for was Donald Trump, and I'm happy as hell for it. But on the same hand too, I try to be fair enough to the point where I try to respect other people's views, even people that, you know, vote for extreme left leaning types of things. I try to be respectful, try to be considerate, try to listen to their part in the event that I'm ever in a discussion where they talk about their perspectives on things. You know, I try to be understanding. But whenever it came to what I felt like I was feeling whenever I was sitting there watching Charlie Kirk get shot like that, and at the event that he was shot at, seeing the realness of it, seeing and seeing before you this person that you enjoyed watching on YouTube, who didn't probably have a single mean bone in his body. He may have said volatile things every once in a while that his opposition hated him for, but to see him get shot like that, it filled me with the kind of rage that made me want to go and hurt someone. You know, I mean, it really did. It made me feel like when I saw that, I started fantasizing about me being in a situation where I'd be ripping people's arms off and shit, you know, and I'm sitting there kind of laughing about the description I'm using, but I really did kind of feel like that, you know, grabbing a gun, fucking killing people, whatever. Just the rage that I felt, the rage and the sadness and all this stuff. And for me to feel like that, and believing that I'm as controlled as I feel I am. The reason I'm bringing all this up the way that I am is because I'm trying to drive home the fear that I think we're on the precipice of something pretty catastrophic here before too long. Because I know that there's a sure shit a lot of people out there who aren't as controlled and intelligent as I am whenever it comes to trying to find ways to be acceptable of other people. And I'll say up front that I think the left is nuts. I think they've got such a severe problem with reality that it's amazing that this kind of violence isn't going on more than it is. But even despite that personal belief about the left, I still don't want to see violence, and I still don't want to see these kinds of things happening like what I saw yesterday. And what worries me is that I think it's coming, man. I think what we've seen right now is potentially nothing. And again, I refer back to my feelings that I felt whenever I was sitting there watching Charlie get killed, or should I say murdered. So I don't really know what to think about all of that. I mean, I've been in this kind of situation before. Like I told you earlier, I remember going through 9/11, seeing things like that, seeing can't remember really right now what other things I've seen, but I've seen just a bunch of stuff like that through the internet, and knowing how I felt every time that I saw stuff like that, man. And I'll be honest with you, I'm still not completely over what I saw yesterday because it was really bad, man. It was really, really bad. I would have been surprised if that guy would have made it, considering everything I saw in that snippet that was taken up close. I mean, it was just really, really traumatic. But with all that being said, though, I mean, I can't sit here, and I doubt anybody else can sit anywhere and be surprised by any of it. And the thing that kills me is whenever you sit here and you start trying to discuss these kinds of things with people that aren't conservative or aren't MAGA or aren't Republican or X, Y, and Z of that type of thing, they'll always say stuff like, "Well, I just think the rhetoric needs to be toned down," or I think it comes from both sides, or some sort of milk toast type of response like that. And I'm sorry, I used to want to think that, but anymore, man, I just don't. I don't. I 100% believe that it is almost all coming from the left. Their constant corruption, the constant calls for violence, and the actual violence that they take part in. You don't see shit like that coming from the right or conservatives, especially conservatives, because there is a delineation, I think, between the right and conservatives and Republicans, and the different other kinds of views in MAGA too. And but you just don't see. I mean, I'm sure. Don't get me wrong, man. I know that there's some bad apples out there that probably have done some bad things. But at the scale that you see these kinds of things taking place from the left, originating from the left, you just do not see it from the right. I'm sorry, you just don't. Whether it be these actual assassinations or assassination attempts or vandalizing and looting cities or these protests that they conduct, all of this stuff, man, they're just full of fucking problems. And how anybody could wind up supporting a party that's comprised of lunatics that are sitting there cheering on what I saw yesterday. I'm sorry, man, but if I ever find out any of anyone in my circle is like that, they've got to be kicked out, and they just do. I can't support that, and I hate being that way, but I don't know really what else to say about it, man. But I know that ever since I saw that footage, man, it's been the only thing that's been on my mind. Seeing him get shot like that, seeing everyone fucking in chaos, and still, from last I've read at least, they still haven't apprehended the guy, despite the fact that they think they've got some images of him and things like that. I just don't know, man. I don't know where we all go from this, but I'm I'm worried that it's going to get worse because I feel like with Charlie Kirk getting killed like this, I think it's going to wind up being I think it at least has the capacity to act as a match to a powder keg. Because I know for a fact, and I can speak from my own perspective on this, but I feel like for the most part, I can also speak for many other people out there. People that you either consider right leaning, MAGA, conservative, whatever you want to call them, they're all getting tired of constantly seeing the same shit happen over and over again by people on the left doing all this shit and constantly getting away with it. They're not all getting away with it, but the vast majority of them usually do either get away with it or get reprimanded in ways that are almost akin to like telling some kid to sit in the corner for a couple minutes or something like that, you know? Like they'll be put in jail for a day or something. Some just really paltry types of sentences and punishments. And people are just getting tired of that shit. We're getting tired of seeing people get murdered just for views and things they say. And all of this has been ramping up because every day you get out there on the internet, you see news pieces about some sort of injustice happening to people like conservatives. And then you've got all the stuff that's been happening for years about things like indoctrination or, you know, the sick freaks out there that are into child porn or exploiting children and stuff. You know, the twerkers that are involved with, you know, the library story hour shit. All of this mess. It's just getting to a point where people are really just about done with all of it. And with Charlie Kirk and that thing that happened yesterday, it very well could be the proverbial match to the keg. But we'll see, man. I don't know. I just don't know. It's all a mess. I do know that much. It's just a freaking mess, and I just don't know what to expect out of all of it. And all of this too, right before 9/11. And by the way, the day that, or yesterday, whenever Charlie was killed, there was also another school shooting. Apparently, I think it was over in Colorado. Some, I guess, I don't know if he was in high school. I think he might have been a high school kid. He shot two, I guess, fellow classmates or something. Now, I think as far as the FBI is concerned, there's a specific definition that constitutes a mass shooting, and if I remember right, I think it's I think you have to have multiple deaths, if I'm not mistaken, and I think it has to be three or more, but I might be wrong on that. Because I know that the news sources, they're all getting kind of used to calling everything a mass shooting, you know. So I could be wrong in terms of how it's been categorized, but I just know that there was a kid out there in some, I guess, high school in Colorado that wound up shooting at least two students. And then today, from what I remember, there is something that was going on. Uh, I can't remember where it was. I think it was over on the East Coast somewhere. I think it was like a naval yard or something where somebody was the entire place got locked down because there was an active shooter situation going on out there. So I mean, it's just fucking everywhere, man. This shit, this violence, whatever you want to call it, it's everywhere. And I've got some interesting theories about why this stuff is happening because I do think that a lot of it is probably political based, but I also think too that a lot of it has not really as much to do with politics as much as it does people just at their wits' end with how our country is. And I'll preface this by saying that what I'm about to describe here has nothing to do with political alignment, unless you want to, you know, go down that path of trying to associate one thing to some president or something like that. And maybe there's room for that type of argument. I don't know, but I know that in the 40 something years of life that I've been alive in, a lot of the stuff that I see that's causing people to become unhinged, it's at minimum, it's going to be extremely hard to blame one political party or president on it simply because of how complex everything's getting. And what I'm getting at is this kind of evolutionary growth of systems and policy. Okay, so if you go all the way back to like the 19 or 1800s or even before then, humanity had this tendency of creating systems and then slowly through time wrapping those systems with certain kinds of policies and laws. Fast forward to today, and it's like that scene in what's it called? It's fuck. What's that movie with? Okay, so there's that guy that is uh, Landman. That guy. I feel like an idiot right now because I'm sitting here in my office chair talking about this stuff as if I'm talking to somebody out loud. But this has kind of got me going. What's that guy's name? I'm gonna get on my other monitor here on my browser real quick so I can look him up. Landman. Uh, what's that guy's name? Over crying out loud. Landman show. Stupid Google. Billy Bob Thornton. Okay, so Billy Bob Thornton, he was in a movie where he's astronaut farmer, I think is what it's called. I'm looking at his IMDb thing right now. Damn it. Yes. Shit. I don't know. I don't know what the damn name of the movie is. But anyway, he was, as you I'm sure are aware of, he was in a movie that, where he was basically a farmer guy out in the middle of nowhere. And the guy basically makes a rocket so that he can go up in space because I guess it's always been something that he wanted to pursue. Excuse me, whenever he was a kid. Well, anyway, in that movie, there's a scene where he's basically getting grilled by, some high-level government officials from DC in like a high school gym. And during that scene, he makes a remark about how we have more laws that tell us what we can't do than any that tell us what we can. And so bringing it back around to why we're seeing some of these people get unhinged as badly as they do and as frequently as they do, it's one of my personal beliefs about why everything's getting as fucked as it is anymore is because everyone is being attritioned into lunacy simply because they just can't keep their head above the water with everything that's constantly expected of them every day. We'll focus real quick on finances because that's a low-hanging fruit in this big turd that I'm trying to describe here. Everything this year has increased, or at least it has where I live. As some of you may or may not know, I'm basically in Indiana, and everything across the board has increased. Groceries aren't as bad as they were when Biden was in office, and again, I'm saying his name, but it's not because I'm necessarily blaming him. I'm just saying that when Biden was in office, things were really crazy, and a lot of it was because of COVID and all that shit, and supply chain issues and whatnot. But in my opinion, groceries still haven't really improved as much as we wanted them to. Eggs are looking a little bit better. Things like milk and whatnot. Some of the stuff is looking better, but it's still insanely high. And bear with me here, I'm going to take a drink. But groceries are still high. Every rate that you can think of has increased, whether that be insurance, both health and auto and home owners. But taxes have increased, utility rates have increased. Get this, man. All throughout the time that I've spent in the house that I live at, during the hottest months, my electric bill has never been over like 150. Okay? Now, that says a lot because my stupid house, man, it was probably built back in the Cretaceous period. So it's an old house. It's got all sorts of issues with windows and insulation. But it's enough for me. I'm a bachelor. It's a little teeny tiny 900 square foot type of home. It's not too shabby for the most part, but it's got plenty of room for improvements. But during the 11 or however many years I've been here now, I've never once seen a bill that went over 150. Well, this year was different, and admittedly, it's a lot my fault because I've decided this summer to keep my thermostat down to like 66. And the reason I do that isn't because I'm psycho. It's because my master bedroom is the hottest room in my house, and if I don't keep the thermostat at a certain point, um, it gets really hot and it can sometimes be a little difficult to sleep at. Not in or in, and I don't know if it's because of bad insulation or if it's because of the way the add-on master bedroom it was built. Because there's not really, I mean, now there's a little bit of a roof above it, and now I finally have some insulation in my attic space up there because I recently redid the roof on it. But whatever the reason, it's one of the hottest rooms in this entire house. But with that being said, at 66 degrees all throughout the hottest months of this year so far, my bill reached up to around $244. And it's okay for me because I'm making more money now. At least right now, I've got a pretty decent job, so I can, and things are paid off, so I'm doing okay. But that was the highest bill that I've seen, and some of that. The reason I'm bringing this up in this vein of discussion here is because some of that was because the electric provider that we have increased their rates. We're currently going through basically like a staggered rate increase with this year increasing up to like 7%, and I think this time next year it's going to be all the way up to fucking 11%. But long story short, the electrical rates increased. The water rate recently was increased by almost 50%, which has a lot of people in my town up in arms, and they're all wondering if they've got leaks in their yard or something, when it's really just this fucking stupid ass rate increase that the mayor submitted. And in his defense, it was probably completely justified because, from what I understand from the ladies in the office, they said that the reason he requested the increase is because of the cost of materials that the city needs in order to make repairs to a lot of the old antiquated water lines that this old town that I live in has. Because I live in an area that makes extensive use of old vitrified clay tile lines for things like sewage and I think let me see here. I'm trying to remember what the old type of water line is. I think it's like a type of metal. It's kind of escaping my mind right now, but anyway, they're kind of going through a phase right now where they're trying to replace a lot of that shit, and they had to come up with a way to basically foot some of that shit. So they decided to raise the rates. And for whatever it's worth, man, I've looked up the mayor's salary on one of those kinds of state-based websites, where you can look up state-based salaries. And that poor guy doesn't really make that much, man. I make more than him, or at least I do the last I saw, because I think he's around like 40 something. I'm around 60 something. So I don't really fault him for wanting to raise a rate to be able to foot that stuff, because it makes sense, and I've met that guy, and so I know that he's honest. At least I want to believe that. But the electric rates have increased, the water rate has increased. I'm expecting this winter our gas provider is probably going to wind up wanting to increase. And paired into our city bill for things that essentially get escrowed together, one thing that was also increased in that was the wastewater management bill, because there's also a wastewater thing that you've got your water bill, but then you've got your wastewater management bill, and that all, with where I live at least, the city escrows all of that together with things like trash pickup and I don't know, maybe one or two other little things here and there. So these recurring things have all increased, and I'm blessed at the idea that my cell phone provider hasn't increased their rates yet, because I'm through T-Mobile's prepaid plan, and to their credit, man, during my entire time of using them, they've never once increased their rates, and I've been with them for many years. So I'm kind of waiting on that to happen, and my ISP at home hasn't increased their rate yet. But everything is increasing, and the stuff that really matters, like home costs, I mean, don't even get me fucking started on that shit. I can't believe how nuts everything looks right now where home prices are concerned. I mean, it is fucking beyond ridiculous. And my personal favorite is vehicle costs, because I'm kind of a car guy myself. I mean, I'm not always out in my garage wrenching on things or anything, but I do love, cars and stuff, because I'm a little passionate about vehicles simply because of everything that I see going on right now in the automotive industry with parts scarcity and, right to repair stuff and all of this planned obsolescence type shit. Because I have two vehicles. I've got an older model pickup truck, single passenger. It's a 2006 Chevy Colorado, and I have a, a two-seater convertible Saturn Sky. It's a red line. It's just a little two-seater convertible. It's pretty sharp. But both of those things are basically 20 years old, and so I'm always on the edge of my seat waiting for some new noise or some shit because I'm always panicking about whether or not there's going to be parts to be used to replace things with. And as a result of that anxiety, I always try to occasionally go out there on things like the various new car websites and stuff just to see what the prices are and what the going rates look like. And I mean, it's just insane through and through. I mean, I think the last time I looked, there was like a 2017, uh, I think, normal cab standard bed Silverado 1500 that had like 170 some odd thousand miles on it. And they literally wanted something crazy like $20,000 for it. And I told myself, there's no fucking way I would ever pay for something like that, man. If I'm going to wind up paying that kind of money for something, I'm just going to hold off and get something brand new. Because then I'll be able to stow away a few more $1,000s if I can wing it. And just, get something brand new that at least in theory, doesn't come with used vehicle problems. And at some point, it just kind of becomes a numbers game where you've got to assess the uh, the risk and the reward. And it's getting to a point with costs of vehicles nowadays to where you might as well just try to your best to save up for a brand new vehicle because you wind up winning out on the end over what you would wind up with if you bought something used. Anyway, the reason I'm rambling about all this shit is because with everyone getting unhinged the way that they are, just looking at the prices of things, a lot of it makes sense because a lot of people are probably waking up each day and going to bed each night worrying about how they're going to pay for shit. I mean, it makes sense, and I mean, it makes sense at least from an emotional psychological standpoint. I mean, not from an ethics or a legal or any other kind of thing, because obviously violence isn't going to fix that sort of stuff. But it at least makes sense from a psychological standpoint why people are as unhinged as they so frequently are anymore. And with the financial stuff, you've also got job scarcity. I mean, like with me, for example, I'm currently going through a situation right now at work where I'm getting pretty serious about trying to find a way out of there, whether it be in a different department or a different organization or company or something. There's just a lot of stuff that's going on at my work that I'm not happy about, and I'm beginning to lose my patience with it. And as a result, I've been looking on websites like Indeed almost every day, sometimes by the hour even, just to see what's out there because I want to try to find an exit plan if push ever comes to shove. Now, with me, I have a degree in IT, university degree in IT. I've got numerous years of experience doing things in PHP and websites and Drupal and content management systems and things like that. I've got some experience developing things in databases, whether it be MySQL, MariaDB, Oracle, even. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that I've had my hands involved with for the past 15 to 20 years. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm like some sort of god whenever it comes to websites or web development or any other kind of stuff, but I do know a pretty good amount of stuff about those kinds of things. And as a result, I would have thought that I wouldn't have very many difficult experiences trying to find a way to get a job where I live, within reason. But at least where I live, which is West Central Indiana, there is almost nothing here unless it's either with one of the big hospitals or one of the local universities. And here lately, there's not even been anything in those places. Now, there has been one thing here in one of our different universities, but I can't This is going to be kind of funny, but I can't. I've decided not to apply to it simply because that's where my ex works. See, I'm kind of in a rock and a hard place with that kind of stuff because my ex works at one of the universities. Her husband works at one of the hospitals, and there's a dickhead that left where we work to go work at the third university in the area. So it's like I've got to be super careful about what jobs I apply to because I'm trying to avoid working at the same places as those people. But even if I wasn't really worried about that, here I'd say within the past couple months, there's only been like maybe one job that I would actually consider applying to out of that entire area over there. So it is just a mess, and of course that gives me stress because then at that point I feel like I'm trapped. I don't like my job, or at least the way it is right now, and there's changes that are on the horizon that I'm not digging. Like we're being forced into different office spaces that are closer to our big boss that I'm not crazy about. There's expectations that are being thrown my way about stuff that I'm going to wind up being forced to have to fuck with, I think. And there's been like a risk of me potentially being given a different supervisor even that I didn't ask for, that my boss, I don't know if my boss that I have now is responsible for some of it or not. Maybe she just doesn't like me because her and I have been butting heads over stuff here lately, but it's never really reached a point I thought where something that she would do something like that, because she's always given me really great reviews and things. So I don't think it's something like that. But the point is that there's all this stuff that's going on where I work, and I've been trying to keep my eyes open for exit strategies, and there's just nothing out there in the world of my IT stuff. And if it's that bad with my degree, I can't imagine how bad it must be for other people. And again, I've got pretty good experience. I've got a somewhat decent network when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I just think all of this stuff, and again, this is all kind of focusing on the financial types of stuff. I just feel like all of this stuff has reached such an extent with people where they're beginning to break. And I don't really know what the solution is to any of it because all of these things are so complex and interrelated with one another that I don't know if it's ever going to get fixed. I don't know if it's even possible to fix. And I really do believe that that's one reason you've got a lot of these younger people out there in the world that are jumping to these weird, unorthodox types of systems and social models like universal basic income or socialism and all of this strange shit, because these problems, they're not seeing any solutions to these problems, and they're losing hope that anything could ever come from those old systems that have always been in play for up to now. And I think that's the reason that they're jumping the gun and leaning in towards these really extreme views on stuff. And I honestly, I believe that that's where a lot of the stuff comes from that you read about on websites like fucking Reddit, where you've got those psychos that are wanting to do things like ban cars or ban manual control of vehicles, banning plastic fucking straws and bags, or uh, passing laws that basically dictate how you parent your own child, things like that. I just think that's where a lot of this type of extreme stuff comes from. You've got all of these everyday systems, all of these layers of everyday foundation that just aren't they're not cutting it anymore for people. And you're beginning to see more and more stuff floating around on the internet about the American dream being dead and people not being able to afford everyday necessities, pay for everyday kinds of recurring utility bills and all of this stuff. It's reaching a point where it's beginning to overwhelm everyone. And as a result, you've got those few in that pocket of people there that were already struggling before the stuff began to reach the boiling point. But now that it's boiling, they're becoming unhinged, and it's almost as if they just don't care. They're going scorched earth on every fucking thing you think of. And that's where you wind up with these psychos that are going out to these public events or whatever and trying to take people out, whether it be a mass shooting or like a Charlie Kirk incident, or I don't know, man. You name it. Pick any kind of flavor of extremism, but that's where I think a lot of it is coming from. It's just this everyday stuff. It's reaching a point where people just can't fucking hack it anymore. And I hate to say this because I don't want it to get construed the wrong way, but there's a part of me that understands that. I can feel for those people, man, because it is getting fucked up out there anymore. It shouldn't be that difficult to find a goddamn job that can pay for things. But it's getting harder and harder. And I can speak from experience on that because I've been searching fucking job boards every goddamn day for the past, I'd say, at minimum 4 months, just to see what's out there and to just keep my options open in the event that something stupid happens where I work. And there is almost nothing where I live. If I was really serious and I got to a point to where I lost my job and had to do something, I'm pretty certain I'd have to wind up selling my fucking house and then moving away somewhere. And I just don't want to do that because my house is paid off. And despite the fact that I'm not crazy about where I live, it is my home, and I don't want to have to put myself through that at some point. You know, I don't think anybody should ever have to. That's the point. But because of how fucked everything is anymore and how the world's changing, it's like you don't see enough people out there with the power to make changes happen, actually changing things. Anyway, guys, I didn't mean to ramble like this, but I had some stuff on my mind that I wanted to try to just vent at minimum about, especially with the Charlie Kirk thing. I I did it while I had Rimworld back here up and running, but I don't really think. I mean, I'm probably going to wind up playing this, but I'm probably not going to wind up recording it. I really just wanted to use this recording to just kind of vent and to talk about things with Charlie Kirk and just, I guess, the world in general. Kind of free my mind up a little bit. Because that shit that I saw yesterday, man, with Charlie Kirk, it's really been on my mind. It was fucked up. It was as disturbing as what I felt whenever I first saw that Zapruder film from JFK's assassination, or some of that stuff that I've seen with 9/11 or fucking whatever, man. So it's good to kind of talk about stuff like this, even if there isn't really anybody out there that's listening. But in any event, though, I think that's where I'm going to just end this video. Maybe at some point I'll come back and actually play this damn game and show you everything that I've done with it lately. But uh, in any event, I hope you guys are doing okay. I don't really know what else to say other than to just try to stay safe, try to stay sane. Don't give in to violence or hatred or anything, or at least try not to. I know it's easier said than done, but try not to, man. You gotta try to do your best to make the world the way that you want to see it. And I kind of believe the older I get, the more I begin to believe that the world is what we make of it. And I don't know about you, but I sure as shit don't want to see the world turn into things that I saw yesterday. It's fucking tragic, man. It's gonna be a while before I'm able to kind of not have poor Charlie in my mind. That that shit, I think, has kind of scarred me, and I'm sure other people have had that effect too. So anyway, stay safe, and at some point, man, I'll upload another video, and then hopefully it'll be a little more cheerier. So until then, have a good one.